Okay, so something that I've been struggling with when trying to do this. So let's say you guys don't have these standards and you just have nonfiction. How do you decide what goes in an interactive read aloud versus your mini lesson?
Good question. So I know that one thing that we try to do is use the same text for our IRA as well as into our mini lesson over here. So one thing to think about maybe is the topic that you're doing and how it will relate starting here at the beginning and transfer over to your mini lesson, so you're not you're using a smaller portion of text as you go into your standards.
Right, so yeah, you want to make sure that anything, I mean, your mini lessons say 12 minutes, and so you want to make sure that you're not taking 10 of those minutes to read them a text, because then you're not able to teach or model anything, and so doing that during read aloud. One of the other things is, personally, what I think I would do if these were completely gone and we're only looking at nonfiction, I would think, first off, I'd pull them up to my feet and I'd say, boys and girls, what do you notice about the difference between nonfiction and this literary text that we've been studying so much of? And hopefully they'd be able to pull out text features and then the structures. That would be something that, like, we could have good discussions about. And that's how I would start it. And then once they know that, then when we come to our test prep and our mini lesson, I could pull them back up and say, boys and girls, remember this morning how we just looked at this text and it looked completely different because there were bolded words and a glossary and graphs and charts. Well, now let's use that information to help us find the main idea, for example. Or let's use that information to help compare and contrast. I mean, so this would be more of like an introductory
like a
piece.
discovery
type
of thing.
Yeah, that's a good word.
So discussion-based.
Discussion-based.
And like you could write this down on like a chart paper, you could have it up on a smart board, just something where almost the kids have kind of come up with it and you've guided that thing. And then, like Lauren said, you use those same thing that the kids came up with. It kind of gives them that ownership for when they come over here and you say exactly what she said. You know, oh, remember what we did this morning with that text and how we noticed all these things. Now we need to be able to use those to kind of navigate through a nonfiction text and find appropriate, what am I trying to say? Appropriate evidence to support.
I'm like, I don't know, what are you trying to
like that?
And then the other thing too is when we look at our ends, again, like let's pretend we are done with literary text, you know, if it's something we've already done during a mini lesson, for example, finding a main idea with nonfiction, we could easily move that over to read aloud afterwards and be like, boys and girls, you know, we have already figured out what good readers do to try figuring out the main idea. I have a new article for you. Let's turn and talk and figure out what the main idea is of this paragraph, or stop and jot. What do you think is the main idea of this? And so once you kind of explicitly teach it, you can then move it over.
Because you can think of these as, I mean, they can be really flexible. So if you're doing this and you're doing that explicit instruction and then you see them doing it on their own, and some of them you see that your class kind of needs more, then that's a good time to be like, okay, maybe I need to kind of hit this again, but at a shorter amount of time with more discussion over here. And so you can move that there and then have more time to do extra new explicit instruction here.
So it is kind of flexible. Essentially just making sure that whatever you hit during read aloud is kind of like the front loading type stuff that they're going to need when you're talking about something later. And you can still front load them information during this part as well, but you almost want, like Lindsay said, I love that word, like the discovery piece. You want the kids to take ownership and figure it out on their own and have discussions with their partners.
Rather than you tell them, like, oh, this is a text, you know, this is a text fusion, this is a photograph, a caption.
Let them find that. And then you can say, boys and girls, you already came up with some great ideas. Look at this chart that we came up with earlier. Now let's use that to help us do whatever it is that we needed to do.